I was very excited when I first bought my unrestored 1937 Plymouth Coupe. With it being a true original survivor, I had so many questions. Who owned it? Where has it been? And what roads has it traveled? Is that even possible to find out these days? So I started my quest to find out. I hope this episode gives you some inspiration to dig into these same questions. So the first thing I'm going to do is get that serial number off the body and send it over to Danielle over at the Chrysler Archives in Detroit, where she can go back to 1937 into the Chrysler Archives, where she can look to see if there's any information on the manufacture of my coupe when it was built at the Plymouth plant on Lynch Road. Here's an old map showing where it was located in Detroit. And in 1937, this is what it looked like. And I wonder what it looks like today. Well, it's still there and it's been repurposed. Several companies are using it. And a special thanks to Danielle. Several months later, she sent me this service car record. This is like a build sheet, exactly how the car was built. Let's take a look at some of the information to put in here. This is just so valuable. Well, the first thing I got to do is confirm that serial number is mine. And it is. It's a 5-window coupe with a steel body, manufactured on August 17, 1937. Here's my motor number that is stamped on there. Let's confirm. Yep, that's it. That's what I have on mine. So that code means that it has black paint and a beige interior. Yeah, this is strange where the body make is Dodge, but it is truly a Plymouth. Next is the body number, and this plate is screwed to the firewall. And I can confirm that 3.9 to 1 ratio in the differential. And it does have a Goodyear spare tire behind the passenger seat. And these two boxes show the original numbers for the keys, which I still have. But wait, there's page 2. Wow, more information. The Deluxe Accessory Group B means that it is a business coupe, which means it has shelves behind the driver's seat, believe it or not. The shipping order number is there, but how it's being transported is blank. Well, let's look at the destination. It looks like Peru, Illinois, and the dealer is Jennings. What does that mean? Now that I know where and how the coupe was built, the next thing I need to do is determine where Peru, Illinois is. I found this 1937 Illinois highway map on the internet, and let's take a look and see where Peru, Illinois is. Population 934. All right, now that I've found Peru, Illinois, how far is that from Detroit, Michigan? It's approximately 350 miles. So how did the coupe get transported from Detroit to Peru? Remember, the service car record did not have anything selected in the transportation area. With the distance only being 350 miles, I would assume that it's going to take a car to transport that distance. Wish this had a picture of my coupe on there, but this transporter looks great with those sedans. With this original 1930s Michigan highway map, hey, let's take a look and see the path it potentially took to get from Detroit to Illinois. Of course, there were no freeways back then, so it would have to drive through all of these small towns. And here it eventually gets onto Highway 6 as it leads into Peru. And 350 miles later, it's at the Jennings Plymouth dealership. But where is it located in Peru? I found this 1935 book at the Peru Public Library. And in it on page 54, lo and behold, there it is. There's DQ Jennings, and located on 4th Street. Is the building still there? Let's look on Google Maps. And there it is, still in existence, 1827 4th Street. That's where DQ Jennings Dodge and Plymouth cars were. Hey, check out this garage door. It's still there, believe it or not. What I found about DQ Jennings is that his real name is Delaware Corliss Jennings. Wow, the Peru Library has this Jennings promotional lighter in its collection. And here's what it says on both sides of it. And here's some original DQ Jennings ads I found in the local city directory. I couldn't find any pictures of the original Jennings dealership. However, I did find this photo that was taken in 1949 when Walter Olms took over that building and he ran a service center out of it. Here's the two records that he had. One is a 1947 International and the other one is a 1949 Dodge. If we jump from 1949 up to 1980, it looked like Walter Olms was still in business. But where did the coupe go after the DQ Jennings dealership? There's some possible evidence inside the door jamb. Beginning in the 1930s, oil companies began placing these service stickers in the car's door jamb to keep track of when service had been performed. Let's take a look. The first one I find is an early Phillips 66 service record that's been torn off. And above that is some Conoco stickers listed up above there. And looks like one is on top of the other with these miles listed in this range. And also down below here, I'm pointing at a date of April 16 of 62 that's listed there. But also below that is Central Oil Company. All right, let's take a look at what's behind it. There's the other Conoco sticker. And then behind that is one that says Central Oil Company, Mendota, Illinois. And above that set of stickers is this one from a Shell station in Amboy, Illinois, with these miles listed, kind of drawn over each other, kind of hard to read. All right, here's the list of the service tags that I found, which I'm amazed are still on there after 88 years. And the miles that are listed there in approximately the order they came in. So what can they tell me? Note that I bought the coupe with only 64,534 miles in 2020. The quest continues. Let me go back and look at that Phillips 66 sticker that was torn off. That might be able to tell me something. I was able to find a matchbook cover from Mendota, Illinois that had that particular logo on it. Phillips 66 started that logo in 1930. Could this be the first oil change that this 1937 Plymouth Coupe ever got? I found this ad in a 1950 Mendota city directory. I found its address to be 607 6th Street. Is the building still there? Well, look at that. There it is. Let's put the old photo over this one, and we'll see what it used to be. Take note where the garage door and the entry door is. So with this, there's some good evidence that my coupe was here at one time. This was the only Phillips 66 service station in town at that time. After removing the two Conoco stickers, and here it is, Central Oil Company, again, Mendota, Illinois, and phone 120. Well, I called that number and nobody answered. What is very interesting about this sticker is that it's made out of aluminum, and here's the range of miles listed on it, and it's from Quaker State. So where was this Central Oil Company station located? I found two local farm directory books from 1952 and 1965, and in them I found these ads showing that it was a Conoco dealer, and most importantly, its location of 800 Illinois Avenue, Mendota. So with the support from Alex at the Mendota Historical Society, he was able to find this original Central Oil photo located at 800 Illinois Avenue. This is from 1925. Thank you, Alex. If we look closely, it was a mobile oil dealer at that time. And the feller in the middle wasn't very interested in this photo op. So when was this station a Quaker State dealer? I found this tin promotional matchbox showing that at one time it was a Quaker State dealer. So this helps confirm that the coupe was serviced here at 23 to 27,000 miles sometime in the 1940s. Alex also found this photo from the late 60s to early 70s showing the station was still a Conoco dealer. And you're wondering what the station looks like today. Well, here it is. Sadly, it's just a parking lot. So the next thing I did was remove the two Conoco stickers that were on top of the Quaker State sticker and separate them very, very carefully and set them side by side for comparison. And in looking at them, it looks like someone had copied all of the information from one to the other, with the exception of down here on the old label, July 31st of 1955. Also, I noted this oil plated. What does that mean? So further investigation shows me that Conoco developed this paraffin-based motor oil in 1933, and it basically plates the inside of your engine. And I like this line too. First with added oiliness. Perfect. That oil must be really good because my flathead has never been apart. With all that cool information from those service stickers, I know from Peru, its first stop was up to Mendota. That was a mere 16 miles, where it had one of its earliest oil changes at the Phillips 66. And sometime in the 1940s, it was changed at the Quaker State. And again in 1955 and 1962 at the same Central Oil Company gas station when it was a Conoco dealer. So let's go up to Amboy and investigate that last Shell station sticker. In researching this Shell sticker, I noticed that it has straight-weight oils listed down below. Well, Shell did not release its multi-grade oils until July 1961. So with that Conoco sticker dated April of 1962 in Mendota, this sticker was placed here shortly after that. And looking closely at these miles, it looks like the Coupe visited this Shell station twice, once at 60,000 and a second time at 63,000. The mechanic just wrote over the earlier miles and then wrote 30W underneath. It says it was on the corner of Mason and Wasson Road. Well, look at that. 60 years later, it's still a Shell station. And again, inside the 1965 farm directory, I found an ad for this exact Shell station. Hey, check this out. This is an original photograph from back then. Let's look at both pictures, the old and the current, and that's the same building. And here's a side view showing where the garage doors used to be, right here, I'm pretty certain. Well, these oil change stickers really helped me a lot. However, I still need to know who owned it. So the only thing I can think of is if I go back in time and go back to the guy that I bought it from. And that was Rick S. in Holcomb, Illinois, back in 2020. I gave Rick S. a call and asked him where he got the coupe from, and he said he got it from his brother-in-law, who lives down in Rochelle, in 2015. And he gave me his address and phone number. So I gave him a call. And here's his house right here. I talked to Mike, and he said he stored the car back in this garage from 1973 up to 2015. That's 42 years. So in 1973, who did Mike buy it from? He said he got it from a lady that was right in the neighborhood. Her name was Elizabeth, and she lived on the historic Lincoln Highway and was only about 2 blocks away. And here's the house that Elizabeth lived in 1973, and if you'll notice around the side here, we're going to see the garage where the coupe was stored from 1964 to 1973. So who did she buy it from in 1964? Using her obituary, I was able to contact her son, who still lives in Rochelle, and he was able to give me the name of John H. and John's address and phone number. At the time, he lived at 958 North 10th Street. I was able to talk to John on the phone, and he was thrilled that the car is still on the road. Here's the house that John owned when he had the coupe. And here's the garage behind his house where he stored it from 1962 to 1964. When I bought the coupe, it had this decal from 1964 in the glove box. It turns out that John left it there because he never applied it to the windshield. That mystery is finally solved. Thanks, John. So who did John buy it from in 1962? That was Vernon R., just a few blocks away on 12th Street. Incredibly, that's 55 years within 1 mile of each other. Now that's just crazy. And here's the house that Vernon lived in, and behind it is the garage where he stored the coupe from about 1960 to 1962. And here's a picture of him. Unfortunately, he just passed away in 2022. Who did Vernon buy the car from? I was able to talk to Vernon's daughter, and she told me that Vernon inherited the car from his father in about 1960 when he had passed away. The car was actually stored in Compton in a barn where Vernon grew up. That was his aunt and uncle's house on McGullen's Grove Road. Using Google Maps, let's zoom in and take a look and see if we can find that barn. Well, there you go. In that white barn right there, that's where the coupe was stored. Through extensive research and contacting his remaining family, the limited information I got was that Vernon's father had the coupe here in the 1950s, and they did not know where he or the coupe was before that. So this may explain why the servicing was performed at the Shell station in Amboy, because it was closer to the barn. All right, here's a complete list of past owners. We're going to start with Vernon's father in the 1950s, followed by his son from 60 to 62, and then we have John H. from 62 to 64, and then Elizabeth from 64 to 73. Then we have Mike D. from 73 to 2015, followed by his brother-in-law, Rick S. from 2015 to 2020, and none other than Flathead Terry from 2020 to present. What an incredible list. I never thought I'd be able to go back that far into the 1950s and find all of these owners that actually drove this coupe.